everyone had a coffee, all refreshed. We're ready for our next one. These are our final 2 sessions today. How has the time gone? Right, so up next we have, Okan. I'd like to get through a day without making a mistake, actually. I've made mistakes in every introduction so far today. Up next, we have Okan, coming from Product Madness. As a data scientist at Product Madness, Okan has helped in optimizing ad monetization activities. He has also worked on getting insights from data to identify optimal user acquisition strategies, including projects such as building models for lifetime value prediction and optimizing TV campaigns. Okan.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Well, just on top of the introduction Karen made, I studied economics and industrial engineering as a major. And during my econometrics and statistics classes, I was like, wow, this stuff is amazing. So I just wanted to pursue a career in data science. So I started my master's degree in data science. Also, I have some skepticism over, okay, like we are using these methods for iris data or, like BPM, horsepower data, and they are all working great. But do this stuff actually work in real-life examples? And with this skepticism, I land on a job in a bank as a data scientist, where I actually see these stuff work quite well and generate value. And approximately 1.5 years ago, I was lucky enough to land on a job as a data scientist at Product Madness, where I basically try to help optimize our ad monetization activities and later on user acquisition activities. And today, I'm going to present you our approach to in-app advertisement, how we think about it, how we build our strategy around it, which is basically a collective work from a pack of great data scientists here at Product Madness. Before jumping into the topic, who are we? Basically, Product Madness is a mobile gaming company in social casino genre, where the word social meaning that you just play for fun, not for any real money payout. Founded in 2007, operating over 7 hubs around the globe, one of which is Barcelona, where I'm coming from, with over 800 employees. Now, we currently have 6 successfully live games, many on the way to be developed and tested over the market. And basically, we process 1.6 billion daily events, which is a lot of data that we can utilize while trying to optimize our activities and basically learn from. So, a bit of agenda for this session. First of all, I want to talk about why are we considering ads in the first place, followed by a quick, brief introduction to ad monetization and in-app advertisement. And then I want to walk you through, step by step, how we build our strategy over ad monetization. And finally, I'll be focusing on user segmentation as a part of this strategy. So, as I said before, Product Madness is a mobile gaming company in social casino genre. And of course, along with many other meta features that our players can engage and have fun, we are mainly providing slot machines to our user base, where users can actually bet on these, bet on these slot machines with the virtual coins they have, and basically they just keep having fun. And when users have less and less amount of coins, they can either go to our coin shop or they can just click on the special promotions that we offer to them and get more purchases. And in return, we get our revenue, which basically pays our salaries. However, only a subset of our users pay. So we cannot actually monetize a significant portion of our user domain. So this brings up the question, how can we unlock new revenue streams for non-paying users in our games, right? And of course, following the title, the answer is a little bit obvious here by introducing in-app advertisements into our gaming ecosystem. What is in-app advertisement in the first place? Well, it basically involves displaying ads within a mobile application and generating revenue based on user interactions with those ads. So there are other publishers in the market, they want to promote their apps, so they basically do advertisements, and this is where we step in and actually conduct these advertisements within our apps. So there are like several ad types that we can utilize. The list I am presenting here is not exhaustive, but these are mainly the prominent ones. The first one I'm going to briefly talk about is the banner ads, which is basically a rectangular graphic display that stretches across either the top, bottom, or some corner of the app so that the player can still play the game and also sees the ad or basically click on the ad, go to the App Store or download the other publisher's app as well. This is really easy to implement, occupies minimal screen space, but it generally brings lower revenue per ad when compared to other ad types, and it also might negatively impact the product look and how the user feels about the product. Another type of ad that I'm going to mention is institutional ads. Maybe you haven't heard of the name, but you probably encountered one in your life. This is actually the ad type that I hate personally the most. But of course, approaching from the business perspective, it is basically, it takes the whole screen space, and you are either not allowed to skip the ad at all, or at least you have to wait a couple of seconds to be able to skip the ad. With these properties, it generally brings higher click-through rates and also higher revenue per ad when compared to other types, but it also has some downsides. It might actually disrupt user experience, how the user feels about our product games. It might negatively impact retention and user engagement. And finally, I'm going to talk about rewarded video ads, which is a little bit different than the previous two, because the previous two can be considered as system-initiated, where user has no option to, click on or see the ad, but it is actually they are actually enforced to the user. Whereas for rewarded video ads, the users basically are offered to see an ad in return for a reward within the app. And in our case, for example, this might be some certain amount of coins so that users have more incentives to watch. It might actually lead to higher engagement and revenue, but it might disrupt the game economy as we will start injecting more virtual currency into the economy. It might also cannibalize in-app purchases, as users will have another source of coins to play in the app instead of going to the coin shop and purchasing. So, bearing in mind that product madness is mainly driven by in-app purchases, but some users not making such purchases at all, so that we want to introduce ad monetization into our ecosystem, how can we develop an effective in-app ad strategy? And the first step into this, selecting the ad format among the ones that I just mentioned. Which type of ads shall we utilize within our app? And how do we make this decision considering all the things that I just mentioned in the previous slide? Well, our primary concern here is that we really prioritize user experience. We really care about user retention. So we are trying to avoid system-initiated ads like banners or institutions. So rewarded ads are some sort of a natural choice in the first step for us. The second one that comes in the game is ad targeting. Now, knowing that we make the choice of rewarded video ads and knowing its advantages and disadvantages, do we really want to show ads to all of our users, even the ones that are actively making payments? And which ad placements that we put in our games to which subset of users? Which will be under the topic of user segmentation, which I will be diving deeper into in the following moments. And following that, there comes placement optimization. Okay, we are moving forward with rewarded video ads, and let's say we are perfect at user segmentation and targeting the right audience with the right placements. How do we place advertisements into our ecosystem? What will be our creatives that would be engaging enough for users to click on? Or where are we going to locate ads in the app? Are we going to locate them in the lobby so that users can go and click? Or are we just going to offer some pop-up ads, or maybe both? Also, what will be the trigger conditions for these placements, right? Like, are we going to randomly offer these ads, or are we going to be, try to be smart about it and chase moments where the users might actually engage in these ads? For example, such as moments like they have lower coin balances in the app, so that they are more likely to engage. Even optimizing these, there are like some follow-up questions. For example, are we going to allow users to watch as many ads they want, or are we going to limit? Or for a specific placement, are we going to allow users to watch that placement right after 1 minute? Or are we going to put some cooldown periods so that these ads are not exploited at all? And the last but not the least, in the placement optimization part, what are we going to offer as a reward? We can offer collectible items, or we can actually offer coin amounts, which users can utilize later on to spin and keep having fun. And what amount? Like, you can basically think about it and then say that, okay, offering X amount of coins versus offering 10X amount of coins will, of course, have different consequences, which is a constant work for us, takes cross-functional teamwork, constant analysis, and experimentation of ideas. And the final step in our pipeline is basically pricing and network optimization. There are things that we can do here, but there are also things that are depending on some external factors. For example, which ad networks to work with, or what to get paid for example, for an ad impression, or a click, or some specific user action, which will strictly impact our monetization. And this is basically categorized under relationship management and waterfall optimization in terms of market bidding. So, as I said, I will be focusing more on the user segmentation side. So let's start. So, who should see our ads? So far, we had one main concern, prioritizing user experience, which we already addressed by our ad selection, which is rewarded ads. And with the rewarded ads, now we know that there are several certain disadvantages as well. For example, potential in-app purchase revenue cannibalisation. So now, when we are targeting the right audience, our primary concern becomes avoiding damaging in-app purchase revenue stream whilst generating ad revenue. And how can we tackle this problem? Well, we can first start with simple segmentations that comes up to our minds. For example, we know that some of our users pay, but some of them do not pay at all. So we can actually split our user base into two groups, as non-payers and payers. And even within payers, what we know is that for some of these payers, we are actually having an active revenue stream. But for some of them, we know that, okay, these users made one or several payments back in the history, but recently we observed no such revenue stream. So we can actually treat all these individual groups separately and design our strategy in line with that. What we can do is basically extend these trees with other factors that might explain, that might address our primary concern. For example, for non-payer users, what we can say is that, okay, let's wait for some time after install so that we give this user a chance to convert in terms of making an in-app purchase revenue. And if the user did not convert in that time, then we can actually start considering generating additional revenue streams through ads. Or for lapsed payers, what we can utilize is just have a look at the user lifetime value, and if it's below some certain threshold, then we can consider again generating additional revenue stream by introducing ads. So this is a really good moment to stop and evaluate what we have been doing so far. Well, to me, like what we have been doing so far is basically trying to, like, intrinsically try to address our primary concern with the variables, factors that we have in mind that might actually explain this primary concern. So what we can actually do here, or can we, instead of extending with these simple decision trees by hand, can we model to whom to show ads, basically? And of course, this is a rhetorical question here. Otherwise, my presentation had to end here. So the answer is yes. But the main problem that comes here is how. Well, first, we need to think about how we can formalize our primary concern into some sort of mathematical equation. To do that, let's understand user behavior on a timeline. Let's imagine a world where there are no ads introduced, so users are engaging and having fun in our games, keep spinning, and when they need to, get more coins, they make in-app purchases, as you can see on the timeline. What we foresee here, when ads are introduced, now users will start watching these ads and getting coin amounts or other collectible items so that they have another source of coins, virtual coins, to play the game, and we get the ad revenue from this. Of course, this might have some implications. For example, users having this additional stream of coins might not need to make the initial purchase, as you can see from the picture, or might still do the purchase, but maybe with a lower amount. Or maybe both at the same time. But in any manner, we see that there will be some cannibalization in revenue. The problem is how we're going to measure this. So first thing to do is just define some timeline, which I will be referring as the hangover period, and to see that, how to formulate that into an equation. And of course, in reality, we don't know how much the user would have done if there were no ads. So this is something for us to estimate. But just imagine that we know this amount. Now we can actually formalize our primary concern into a simple equation, which is the total net revenue in this hangover period that we observe is basically the ad revenue that we accumulate minus the cannibalized in-app purchase revenue. So having this net ad revenue greater than 0 basically tells us that, okay, maybe showing ads to this user is actually a profitable action for us. But if not, then maybe we should avoid showing ads and just be careful about not hurting the in-app purchase revenue stream. But now back to reality, and let's face our problem that we don't know how much of the in-app purchase revenue is cannibalized so far. Well, luckily, we live in a world of experimentation where we can conduct an A/B test to see this cannibalization effect of ad revenues. So what we can do is basically just split our user base into two groups. And for one, which is the control, we keep not showing ads. And for the other group, we can actually introduce ads and then start measuring the damage on in-app purchase revenue metrics. And while doing that, on the right-hand side, what you see is that on the x-axis is the forward time period. So 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, whatever it is after. And on the y-axis, what we see is the high-density intervals on the cannibalization metrics, such as average revenue per user. And what we can do is just to see this hangover period where also this damage starts to converge to somewhere, and just take that as our cannibalization assumption. Having that cannibalization assumption, now we can actually plug this into our equation in the previous slide and actually have an estimation on the net ad revenue for that specific user. Now, having this netted revenue, we can basically just convert this problem into a classification problem. If this estimated netted revenue is greater than 0, then we know that showing ads is profitable. If not, then it's not profitable. And then we can actually approach this problem with the classification methods that we know. So, what we know is that for each app, we have a different world. And within each app, we already talked about avoiding showing ads to the active payers. But we can actually utilize these two groups for non-payers and lapsed payers, which has different behavior and different history, and then start modeling this classification problem for each, and which will output basically a propensity score of being profitable, given that this user was shown ads. And after this, what we can do is just come up with a threshold value. And if the propensity score, the output propensity score is above this threshold, then we can say that, okay, we have high confidence that if we show ads to these users, it will be a profitable action, so let's show. In the other case, let's not show. But another question is, how do we determine such a threshold after conducting, after coming up with all these models? How should we decide what is the optimal threshold for this case? Well, one usual thing we can do is just look at the classical usual classification metrics and just bear in mind what is our main objective. Are we going to try avoiding showing ads to the wrong audience? Then in this case, maybe we want to optimize towards precision. Or are we going to try maximizing showing ads to the right audience? Then we might actually want to recall the profitable segment that we are after. And of course, as in many other business cases, we are actually after some balance, optimal balance between those two. Then again, with this approach, we can actually work with the harmonic mean of the two, which is known as the F1 score. And with this approach, actually, there is nothing wrong, which is quite used in the industry. But from the start of this problem, we always wanted to include the business needs and the approach that would address the business need the most. So we came up with another approach. What we can do is basically, okay, we estimated the net ad revenue per user, and then we converted it into a binary flag and then modeled it, right? So we can actually go back to this net ad revenue, and instead of just using the information whether showing ads is profitable or not, we can actually utilize the information by how much. So on the right-hand side plot, what you see on the x-axis is the threshold value that we can pick. On the y-axis, what you see is the corresponding total estimated net ad revenue for that particular threshold. And this total estimated net revenue is maximized at some point. And for this point, we actually choose the corresponding threshold as the optimal one for our use case. Okay, so we actually formulated this into a mathematical equation, then converted into a classification problem, built our models for each segment, made our threshold selections, but then are we ready to roll out fully, with full confidence? Again, we live in a world of A/B tests, so what we can do is just basically test our new approach against the old heuristic rule approach and just start to observe results. And what we observed after conducting such a test is 15% uplift in ad impressions, changing by segment, 15 to 25% uplift in ad revenue, and the most importantly, with no significant damage on in-app purchase revenue, which was our primary concern in the first place. Also, we don't see it in the slides yet, but there were other potential upsides that we have observed, such as increased activity in the metrics such as spins and time spent. which was also another plus because that also showed us like our ad type selection and our approach is actually working in a good way in many aspects. So, did our pipeline end here? Well, of course, in every machine learning project, not. Now we also need to monitor how our model performance is going, and just bearing in mind that our target variable is also an estimation depending on factors such as cannibalisation factor. We also just take into consideration of changing dynamics within the game or within the market. So first, what we can do is basically check the model performance metrics such as AUC or classification metrics that we can see. If we see some deterioration in the performance, then we can actually act on it. And also we can check if the features are changing with time, are there any data shifts that we should be aware of, should we act on it. But more importantly, again, considering any potential changes in the market, what we can do is how does the target variable, therefore the model performance, respond to different cannibalization assumptions. What we could do by time is maybe run another A/B test to see if cannibalization factor has changed so far. But of course, this is a costly action for us, which needs us to, like stop showing ads to some users and basically causing us to lose revenue stream. So instead, what we can do is just like, take a potential distribution for cannibalization values or even a grid of values and test our target variable by time and also our model performance in line with it. So that if we see some risks for some values of cannibalization assumptions, and if we believe that this cannibalization assumption is something likely to occur, then we can act on it. But if not, then we can actually safely keep our model in production as well. Or another thing that might have changed is basically the market conditions. So like the cannibalization factor either changed or remained the same, but maybe in the market last year, it was paying 2x of revenue per ad, but now the market has shifted and now it's paying 1x revenue per ad. In that case, our estimated target value also is like also sensitive to these kind of changes. So we have to be bearing in mind that we should be controlling it. So overall, I think this was an interesting project that we were conducting so far, because from the beginning, we tried to build our strategy around ad monetization step by step, considering which ad type to move forward with, and then considering its advantages and disadvantages, we try to formulate into a mathematical equation so that we can work around it. And from the beginning to the end, what we have tried to do, even in threshold selection or maintenance of the process, we always try to bear in mind the business needs and what's actually impacting the money instead of the technical details we are working with. And basically, I am open to take any questions if you have any. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions in the room? We do. Great. Give me a second to run down.
Hi. Thanks for the talk. I thought that was beautifully clear presentation of the work you're doing. I had one question that you mentioned on an earlier slide, which is you were worried about rewarded videos if giving prizes, making the game easier.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time.
Sorry. You mentioned on an earlier slide that with rewarded video, you might potentially make the game easier because you're giving rewards and the rewards make the game easier. Did you see that effect? And if so, what did you do about it?
Actually, we not only during this modeling process, but we see it in other occasions as well within our app. For example, like after some time when we introduce ads to our users live, what we see is an increase in their activity because now they have more resources to keep playing. And also, like, of course, there's a risk of in-app purchase cannibalization, but some users, for example, like me, will never make any purchase, but still might be like interested in playing the game more. So for these users especially, rewarded video ads are actually like a great source for them to keep having fun playing the game. And also, like in the final results, what we have observed in the new approach is an uplift in spins as well.
Great, thank you. Oh, question in the front.
Thanks for the talk. I actually had two quick questions.
Yeah.
The first one is about the what type of like the ads itself. I guess you are using their contents to match to recommend a
What
specific
type of, sorry?
information about the ads. I guess you are using their content or some related like some information that can be useful to decide which user might be interested in that ad. And the second question is, yeah, as you mentioned, you have 6 games at the moment.
Yes.
Was it, I mean, I guess you are using this pipeline for all of them, but was it difficult to kind of adapt that process pipeline to each of these games? Or, yeah.
Yeah. Answering your first question, the actual ad the users receives is actually like depending on the external market bidding. Like for example, we have a location, we have a time in our app that we can actually provide these ads. But then this is of course filled by the market demand. Like, so we are not picking up the content of the ads to provide to the users. What we are doing in terms of the creatives is just like making the offers more attractive to those users, right? Like both in terms of creative or what we offer to those users in return for these ads. And your second question was, yeah, is it difficult to apply this pipeline to like individual segments that we mentioned, like several apps and also like for each app 2 segments? Well, like of course it is harder than applying to only one app, but what mostly changes during this process is basically the features that are actually like selected, like that goes into the model. So as long as the pipeline is the same, the process is, I think, easy to repeat.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Okay, we have one more question. The room seems a lot smaller, but it's not.
Hi, it was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Just had a quick question. Did you offer any of your users the ability to remove ads altogether if they made a purchase?
Actually,
or would they always have ads regardless if purchase was made or not?
like what we do, for example, strictly avoid showing some users, like showing ads to some users. But as far as I know, so far we haven't like put an option into the app to remove all ads altogether. I assume like you're asking something like something done by King in the previous like presentations if you joined. But as far as I know, we don't put that option into our app so far.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Right.
also like adding up to that, like maybe, I don't know, if we were in another like type of genre, like and providing institutional ads actually to the users, then maybe this option might have been a good one, both in terms of generating revenue and also, like letting users to avoid seeing ads. But what we are strictly offering here is just basically rewarded video ads, where users have the option to, like not opt in or opt in. So this was not an essential concern for us.
We still have a little bit of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So you mentioned at the start of the presentation, and just now, you don't use interstitial ads. Did you ever test that
that impact on retention?
We had an idea to test it, but we are, again, our main primary concern is just like the user experience and how our product basically is out there for the users. So we still haven't tested that. Even if we test it, we will be like super conservative in terms of like the split. But yeah, a short answer to your question is no.
Okay, and then I have a follow-up. So do a significant number of users engage with the rewarded ads?
Well, yeah, I can say like
Okay, so
among the eligible eligible user base, yeah, like we have a considerably high engagement rate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much to Ogun.
Yeah. Thanks.